Welcome to the Heave podcast. Today we have Kyler Allison, president of DAC Demolition, a recycling demo contractor based in Texas. Welcome, Kyler.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for agreeing to sit down for a conversation. Would love to learn all about kind of the recycling industry, what you guys do, kind of how you got there. But would like to start with your background. You have a very diverse background. Like I would describe it positively as a hustler. You worked in different roles, trying different things. Seems like there's been a pattern of learning in different areas to ultimately getting to starting a recycling company. So I'd love to kind of hear your journey and how you started the company, what got you there.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, I kind of jumped around for a while. In my late 20s, mid 20s, I was trying to pretend to be an athlete, doing dumb things like CrossFit, and got into bobsled and couldn't really sink my teeth into what I wanted to do for a real job, I guess. So that kind of bounced me around in my early career, and then ended up at a healthy foods, like prepackaged company, and worked there for 5 years. And kind of the goal there was to expand with the company and start to open more locations. That unfortunately didn't work out, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it. I left there and went back to school. My primary goal was just to learn more about how to be more efficient at learning. So I got my MBA and my doctorate both in online schools. I guess the main takeaway I have from that was that it taught me how to use the internet and kind of self-learning to be able to take on new topics. I think that's the biggest thing I got out of this. And I think there's a lot of people that shy away from online learning. But in this day and age, I think it's really important to be able to take concepts and do the research on your own, just because you have access to it. So from there, like I said, I did bobsled for a little while. That was just a random thing. The gym I worked at, one of the guys had trained a couple people to do it, and he jokingly said, "You should try out." So I did. I ended up making it. I traveled with the U.S. bobsled team for a year. Ended up stopping because it was just too much time on the road, and my daughter was about to be born. So she definitely trunked hanging out with a bunch of kids living in a hotel room. But from there, I got into industrial hemp again through somebody at the gym I was working out at. They had started a company where basically the idea was to use drones to fly over the fields that was growing industrial hemp. When I say industrial hemp, it's not smokable flower. It's used for fiber primarily. So the big thing there is to look for hot crops. It does have THC, and if you go above a certain THC level, you've got to destroy it. So we were going to use drones to fly over fields using LiDAR and other cameras to try to predict what that crop would do, what that strain would do over time, and then use that to improve the farming. The industrial hemp kind of industry fizzled out a couple of years ago, just for a multitude of reasons. But while I was there, I met my business partner who I'm with at DAC Demolition. Him and I just kind of got along really well, and some things happened in the company that he relied on me for accurate information, and I didn't lie to him. So that kind of built the foundation of our trust. So from there, him and I started working with one of his old partners that he worked with in fire retardant clothing. During the pandemic, hospitals couldn't source product, so most of the domestic supply chains dried up. We weren't manufacturing enough of the PPE here, so we started a little company to help hospital systems procure PPE and other supplies from these overseas partners and brokers. Kind of, it's a weird world when you get brokers involved. Not all brokers are bad, but when you have a crisis attached to brokers, it was a lot of fake supply, a lot of smoke and mirrors to try to get you to send money to a certain account. And we kind of, our company served as kind of a block between the hospital system and these brokers, so that we would go out there, we would talk to them, we would transact with them and try to get the supplies back to the actual hospitals that needed it during the pandemic, which we were able to do successfully for a while. During that same time period, we started investing our money into some different companies, one of which was DAC Demolition, and that's become the forefront of my focus the last year or two. It's kind of a weird way to get into it, but I think the driver that got me into it primarily was my business partner. His family has been in the demolition and recycling industry for 3 generations. He's the 3rd generation. They had a lot of knowledge, a lot of relationships. They had a company a while back that they decided to do something different, so they kind of shut it down. We decided to kind of ramp it back up, and that's how we got back into it.
Nice. And so your partner has the industry experience, like 3rd generation.
Right.
What would you say, like your skills, like having, the diverse background, like what did you bring to the table at DAC?
So in our relationship, he does a lot of the actual work, where I coordinate what it takes to do that work. I think initially we would work kind of, I'm doing all the office work, he's doing all the actual recycling and demolition is the easiest way to look at it. I have no experience with demolition. My dad was he was in construction. He started his own construction company, but that was in sports surfaces, so very different. And I never really worked. I worked for his company for a little while, but didn't ever really try to kind of follow his footsteps. Wanted to kind of forge my own path. But he was very successful in what he did. But I don't have a background in construction or demolition or operating machines. So my partner knows that world. What I brought to the table essentially was making sure that we're setting our company up correctly. We're paying our bills. We're collecting the money that we're owed, and then all of that kind of background noise that's in between there in running a company. I mean, a lot of people get into business because they want to, like, I saw this a lot in CrossFit, which nobody wants to talk about CrossFit, but people who are passionate about CrossFit started these gyms thinking that they're going to do CrossFit all day, not realizing that what they're going to actually be doing is running a gym business, which has nothing to do with training people and working out, right? So that's kind of where him and I come together. Is he goes out and does the thing. I am the background that runs the company.
Very good. Yeah, the business behind it. What?
Right.
So you're learning the demo recycling business. What has been surprising to you learning about in the industry?
So the majority of what we're doing right now is recycling. We're not doing a ton of demolition. And there's reasons for that, but I guess I had and I think most people have this same thought, that when you look at scrap metal and you drive by a job site where they've demolished something, you see trash, right? You see piles of things that are being loaded into trailers, and your assumption is, oh, that's going to a landfill. And that's not true. I mean, most people don't realize that scrap metal is one of the primary drivers of the steel industry, right? Especially now that we're moving more towards electric arc furnaces versus traditional kind of raw ore steel making. Scrap metal is very important in that process, and it's valuable, especially non-ferrous or non-iron metal has a lot of value. So there's people that are in construction that probably knew that already, or people that are kind of familiar with recycling, but I don't think that it's common for people to understand when a building is torn down, there's a lot of commodities that are very valuable that come from that. It's not all just garbage.
Yeah, they're recycled, reused, and resold.
Right. Yeah, I didn't know that. I knew that scrap or metal had value, right? But I didn't really make the connection between demolition and commodities trading, essentially.
Yeah, when I started in the industry in 2004, I started with an equipment dealership, and I was a territory salesman. And one of the accounts in my area was a company called Trademark Metals. That's I think a division of the David Joseph Company. And I
Okay.
remember going to my first scrapyard, and it was a pretty like jarring experience. So you'd see these like old beat up pickup trucks that would
Right.
have a ton of scrap in the bed of the truck, and they would have a very uh, loosely tied down. And
Right.
they would drive into the facility. They would get weighed when they come in, and they would
Mm.
go in. They would drop off the scrap, and then the facility had a shredder, and they would run all the scrap metal through the shredder, and it'd have a product that they would then package and then sell. Typically, I think like you get on a boat to China, and then
Right.
everybody bringing in the scrap would get a ticket, and they would get paid cash on the way out. So that was my introduction to the scrap industry and the metal recycling.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid, I was taking the running boards off my truck because I wanted it to look higher. And I took them off and kind of threw them aside, and my uncle was randomly there. He's like, "Hey, can I have those?" I'm like, "For what?" He's like, "I'm gonna go take them to the scrapyard." And I'm like, "Okay, dude, what, you're gonna go throw them away at the scrapyard instead of me throwing them away here?" I didn't understand at all, and I thought back on that the other day. I was like,
Right,
"Oh,
right.
he was scrapping. That's funny."
Exactly. So who are your customers then? So I'd love to like learn more about like who your customers are, like what a typical job is for DAC.
Yeah, so we kind of have a niche. We don't do any commercial demolition. So we're not out there in cities knocking buildings down. That's not what we do. We work with large aggregate producers, sand producers. We're looking into getting into coal producers. So there's these plants, and there's thousands of them in the U.S. where they're taking big rocks and making smaller rocks that's used in roads and concrete and everything
Mm-hmm.
else. So as you can imagine, the process of grinding and crushing rock or sand is hard on equipment. So these
Mm-hmm.
plants that we go on have equipment that starts to break down. They take that equipment, they push it off to the side into what's called a boneyard, is what people call it. And that stuff over time starts to stack up, especially in aggregate plants. They're really hard on their equipment. I wouldn't say they're hard on it, but it's the process of grinding rock is hard on things. So that starts to stack
Mm-hmm.
up. What we do is we come in and we offer to clean up the metal that they have. We have large excavators with pneumatic shears that cuts the equipment up, put it into trailers, and we haul it off. We then take some of that income that we receive from the recycling of the metal, and we share that back to the plant, and they can use that income to offset other services that we offer. So we help recycle or remove OTR tires, which are just the large mining tires, belting,
Mm-hmm.
poly pipe we can recycle, and trash. So there's a cost to that. There's a disposal fee. There's a hauling fee. My son's waving through the window, and other fees. And then we have our own hauling charges, our machine time, things like that. So essentially, what we try to do is go into a plant. We say, "Hey, you got X amount of scrap revenue from the bone pile that you have. From that,
Mm-hmm.
you also need some belting, some other things done. This is where you'll end up. Either we pay them or they pay us. So a lot of times we're paying our customers because there's more recycling income than there was T&M services. So we write them a check. And that's the kind of, I would say right now, probably 90% of our business. We do also offer heavy hauling, so we'll move big assets for them. We do hot shots, kind of rarely do that. But also we do demolition and dismantlement. So we've done a couple big demolitions where, say they have a specific part of the plant. So if you think about an aggregate plant, there's lots of conveyors because they're moving this rock all around the plant,
Mm-hmm.
right? And those conveyor structures start to break down,
Mm-hmm.
or they need to move to a different side of the plant. So they'll get rid of sections that are still kind of assembled in the in the plant, and we'll go in and help take those down. Or if a plant's been decommissioned, we can help with that. But that's kind of a broad overview of what we do.
Yeah, and what is your current footprint? Like, where are you working primarily?
So we spent a lot of last year just in Texas. This year we started to branch out and travel around. So we've been in Texas, Oklahoma, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, kind of still steady in the South, just because the cost to move the equipment across the country is pretty significant. And some of it has to do with scrap pricing. So scrap pricing is a commodity. We primarily sell a specific type of iron. So that pricing changes every month. And this is another thing I didn't know, that we don't get that pricing until usually the 10th of the month after. So, right, we'll have, for this month, we receive the pricing on June 10th, and that'll be good until the 30th. And then we'll go through this period of 10 days where some people won't buy anything. They'll wait until the mills set the price. Because kind of the structure of it is you've got the steel mills at the top that are setting the price, and then you've got these yards that sell to the steel mill, right? So they wait. The price has to be set here, and then they say, okay, I'm going to buy it here, and then I'm going to buy it from you down here. And there's different. Sometimes we interact with a scrap yard that's 2 removed. Sometimes we directly go to the mill. So it depends, but we have this weird lull of pricing every month that we have to kind of navigate through, which makes it interesting when you have bills to pay, right?
Absolutely. And I've known that, scrap is notoriously volatile.
Right. And this year it's been on a steady decline since January. So I guess back to my point of it changes monthly, but it's also regional. So what we're getting for a specific grade in Texas can be different within Texas, depending on how far you are from a steel mill is the best indicator I've found so far. But then, like right now, there's really good pricing in Alabama. There's really good pricing in Florida. So that kind of starts to dictate, okay, what jobs are we looking at? What are we trying to get? Where are we sending our salesmen to try to find new work? Because we're having to chase pricing at this point. Because the difference
I was going to ask you about that.
$50 to $60 a gross ton, which is huge for us.
That is huge. With the decision to go into different areas, was that more customer focused because you had maybe worked for, because that's one of the things that's really impressive that I was just doing research on your company is the list of your customers, like huge names in the aggregate, like very well established. Is it like, hey, we've done work for this customer in Texas and they also have plants in Florida and Alabama, so we can go there? Or is it more driven around the economics of what you discovered? Like the pricing is $50 to $60 more a ton in these markets. Let's go chase work there.
Yeah, I'd say it's a blend of both. I mean, we can't dictate what jobs we get, right? We don't have this huge backlog of, the pricing's better here. Let's go do these jobs right now. We're trying to get to that point to build as much backlog as we can so we can make those strategic decisions. But at this point, it's more so, okay, we have these customers. They have plants here, and here. We know somebody that could probably connect us to this plant. And then it's just old school. I mean, we do a lot of door knocking. It's not,
sure.
At this point, we're not that's the best way to describe it. So our large customers have plants all over the U.S., hundreds of them, right? But it's not, you get set up with your customer and they just push you to every single plant that they have. It's an individual plant manager that usually makes the decisions of whether or not he wants to let you in his plant. And then if you get in, whether his maintenance manager wants to get rid of the stuff over in the corner or if he wants to keep it. And then they might be saying, okay, well, you can take it, and go ahead and recycle that. And then another guy will come in and say, no, I'm going to transfer that to the other plant, or no, I need those parts. Don't take it. Right. So it's very individual. These are huge companies that have procurement people in every region, in every plant. So you're dealing with a lot of people, but we're starting to get to the point with these bigger companies that they're recognizing that we do something that no one else does. We can get into that in a second, but it's a mixture of getting lucky with talking to the right person and having good pricing in that area. And honestly, we've had some tough months, and we've gotten very lucky to take on a job in Alabama. Was a big one for us. They had great pricing. It was significantly better from Texas. And we, through just kind of every day hitting people, hey, you guys need help. And I do a lot of outreach through LinkedIn. I don't use automated messages. It's me sending each individual person a message. And I don't type the message each time, right? I do a little bit of copy and pasting, but it's me reaching out, just trying to tell people about what we do and what we can offer. And what we found is if the plant is looking for what we do, and they've talked about it recently, it's an easy sell. We get in front of them, we're almost 100% close rate. But you're never going to go into a plant and convince them that they need to do something, right? They either want to do it or they don't. And if they don't, we can send them as much marketing and have as many conversations as we want. You're not going to close them. They've decided ahead of time, okay, I need this stuff, but I can't find the right person to do it. And that's been a hard lesson for us, especially with the door knock. It's expensive to send a salesman flying around the country, only hitting a couple of these things out in the middle of nowhere. They're not usually, sometimes they're kind of grouped, but traditionally they're outside of town a little bit. There's a lot of driving involved, and that's an expensive process to have somebody out there door knocking. But we found that if we can get in front of the right people at the right time, it's a pretty easy sell.
It's funny. I have very similar experience as to what you're going through, because we have, like, rewinding a little bit, the large customer part. It's almost like, so these people don't talk to each other within the same company. Right. It's like they're all, even though they're all part of the same company, it's like they're all different. You would hope that it would be a lot easier. Like, hey, once we get our foot in the door at company X, then it will spread, and then it'll be easier. We've had the same experience. It's like you're starting all over again.
Right. I will say that we've had some champions inside some of these big companies that have, there's a person that's done so much for our company. She basically got us into our first job with that company, and then she emailed plant managers with us on the email and her attached to it, saying, hey, you guys need to check them out. And she did that for multiple plants, and that got us, that really got us over a hump. And she did. So there are those people out there that'll kind of champion you within the company. But like you said, there's a lot of moving parts, and people don't necessarily talk, and there's not typically one person that can reach every single person that you need to in the company. It's a lot of still of that work to get to the right person.
And I also share the experience about you're not going to be able to convince people or customers if they're not somewhat interested in this. And so with something as such a niche offering as what how do you know that a company is like investigated this as a solution?
So, we can typically tell if we're getting to the right person. There's a lot of people you don't get. There's kind of like in any industry, right? There's the lady at the front or the guy at the front that's the doorkeeper. For us, that's the scale house. If we randomly roll up on a plant and we go to the scale house, you can kind of tell whether or not you're going to be successful there or not. They're either going to tell you to go do something else, or they're going to start saying, yeah, you can talk to so-and-so in the back, and we'll help you out. So we've had both of those experiences, but like anything, it's just you got to keep at it, keep touching them, and eventually you can get to the right person. But I think the thing that we do that separates us from other people in the industry. And there's not a lot of companies that do exactly what we do. I think the closest comparison would be just our traditional scrapper. And that's kind of what we used to do. But it's a guy that shows up and says, hey, I can recycle your metal for you. And they'll come in and they'll pick the stuff out that they want to recycle and get good money for, and then they'll leave you a mess. Right. So we're dealing with that stigma. People think that's what we do. What separates us is we've taken all of our reporting digital. So when we come in, we're fully MSHA certified, which MSHA is just the OSHA of mining sites. That's a barrier to entry for some people. We have huge levels of insurance, which is required by most of our customers. And then any material that we take off the job site is tracked through a digital weight ticket. So what happens is our guys will cut it up. They'll load it into either our truck or a contract truck. And then that truck will roll out on the scale. Most of these job sites have scales in the plant. So we'll get a weight out of the plant. So they'll know, okay, you took X amount of steel out this day at this time on this truck. Then when it gets to its final destination, we get another weight, and we can kind of reconcile those two things. So there's no kind of, oh, we told you that you had 200 gross tons, but we actually hauled 300 gross tons, but we didn't share back that much with you. We have tickets. We have field tickets of everything that we do. We do billable tickets for anything that we charge, and we really try to bring that transparency to the plants. And that's something that they've never seen before, at least in our experience, from people that do what we do. So that's something that's really separated us and really, I think, gotten us to be able to work with some of these bigger customers.
Interesting. So their primary experience with companies that have done what you do is like a one-off, you say scrapper. Right. So you've really like professionalized the entire experience.
Right. And we're actually going to go through a rebrand. Demolition has its own kind of stigma to it. And like I said, that's not the primary thing that we're doing at this point. We're doing more recycling boneyard cleanup. So we're going to rebrand as DAC Industrial Services, because that more encompasses what we do and the offerings that we're going to bring on. So demolition, dismantlement will be a part of that. Heavy hauling, transporting will be a part of that. We'll stay with our kind of niche in recycling. And then we're going to look into starting to do a little bit of brokering for people too, for job sites that don't necessarily need the machines and the equipment on it, but want to get rid of their scrap metal. We can use the connections that we've built to help them with that. So we want to be able to present a package that is more attuned to what we actually do and has, honestly, it has a better, it just gives people an idea of more of what we can offer, and that doesn't have the negative connotations with it that a demolition company would have.
It's one of those things that, having started a company, myself, you learn like you have to start small. You have to focus on one area, and then over time, you can expand the offering. And because you got to work out a lot of kinks in the beginning, and just nail down your value prop for your customers. It makes total sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, we're fortunate. I mean, these companies have contractors on site all day, every day, and there's a ton of different ways that we could spin into and go after different things that they do. They're happy to use one contractor for more services. All right. And we're happy to provide more services. It's just that same thing that you just spoke about, right? What's our core competency? And I've been part of 2 or 3 companies that got outside of that and just started trying to do everything for everyone. And you end up doing I don't know what the saying is, but you end up doing nothing to nobody.
Right.
But
you don't do anything well. I know that.
Right. Yeah. So we've really tried to stick to what we found success with. We did grow a little bit fast, in my opinion, faster than I think we should have, but it was kind of there's a reason. Sometimes you got to grow revenue to try to stay ahead. Right. So we jumped in and went for it. And I think we're once we do this rebrand, we're set up to have a lot of future success and really grow the company in a strategic way and have it unfold the way that we want. Just hoping that scrap prices start to come up. Because that's the problem with what we do now is we're really tied to that number, right? We can't control it. There's nothing we can do about it. We can't go beg a steel mill company to pay more. We're tied to that number at this point, and that's the primary driver of our revenue. So if that continues to decline, we have to pivot. But we've got opportunity to do other things within the same customer base, and that customer base has almost an infinite amount of work, right? We don't have to chase new customers all the time. We're not going to outwork people because these things turn over, right? They're always grinding rock. These things are working 24/7. So a plant that we just cleaned up sometimes can have more work within a year. Sometimes it'll be 2 or 3 years, but they're going to have work. If we do a good job, we've got built-in work a couple of years ahead. And with the size that we are now and the amount of crews that we have, we'll never outwork ourselves.
Our companies are close in age. I think you're like 3.5 years in. We're around the same, almost 4 now. So like selfishly, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast is I always like to ask people about, their experience starting a company, challenges that they've encountered, and more for like learning for me. And I like to learn, through others' experience as well as my own. What are some of the things that surprised you in starting the company? Like maybe challenges that have hit you that you weren't prepared for at the time, how you've worked through certain things. Because I could tell you for a half hour to an hour things that I thought would be easy that weren't, and we learned the hard way.
I think the cost of doing business in this industry was pretty surprising to me. When we first looked at it, I make spreadsheets. That's what helps me think. So I had spreadsheeted it to death and thought that I understood the costs. And one thing that just kind of really struck me was the cost of insurance. It's insane to have the levels of insurance that are required and what that cost looks like on a yearly basis for the size of company that we are. Really, there was some sticker shock there.
Makes you want to start an insurance company, doesn't it?
No, but we're definitely helping them out. It's the same thing. Everyone complains about insurance until you have something break, and then they come in and write a $50,000 check, and then they drop you. But that was one thing. One thing that I was kind of happily surprised about was the employees that we've been fortunate enough to have just kind of blown me away. I expected there to be a ton of turnover and kind of employee issues all the time. I've worked in heavy employee companies where there's just a lot of people doing a lot of different things. I mean, we only have 15 people, but just they're genuinely good people. They've helped us tremendously. Just been really blown away by kind of how good our people are. So that was really cool. I hadn't seen that a lot in other things I've done.
Is there anything that you guys do as a company that helps foster that culture? I've been a part of larger companies where like one of the big things that I learned is how important it is when you hire new people to like really put them through, terms are overused today, but onboarding, like making people feel from their first day, like really a part of something, get them aligned on your mission, like what you do. That's something that I've learned in the past that we're starting to do here. And I could see that it sets the tone right from the first day. Is there anything that you guys do that helps contribute to that culture?
I think that's part of my surprise. Like we do a terrible job of onboarding. Some of our guys have come on and gone to work in a couple days and just kind of thrown into it, right? We just, like I
Mm-hmm.
said, we've gotten really lucky with the people we've been able to bring on, and some of that's I think due to their. We're a small company. It's still kind of relationship based, right? These aren't complete strangers to
Mm-hmm.
us most of the time. They're connected in some
Mm-hmm.
way. But that's something that I really want to get into next year is more of that employee development and, and training. I mean, we do training every week. We do our best to onboard. We obviously have to bring them up to speed on MSHA certs and all that stuff. But as
Mm-hmm.
far as spending a lot of time showing appreciation and doing the things that I would like to do, I don't think we do a good job of that. And I wish we had more time to do it. As a small business, I'm sure you know, right? There's only so many hours in the day, and you look up, it's 7 a.m. and then it's 5 p.m. And you haven't done anything that you're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to do. You just kind of we're doing all day. And that happens a lot
Right.
to my day where I kind of set out what I think I want to do and what I want to work on and try to work on the business, but always end up kind of working in the business and trying to figure out different problems as they arise, as opposed to doing that strategic planning work that really helps propel us forward.
Anything else that jumps out to you, starting the business and things that have kind of surprised you or you're working through?
The amount of one thing that surprised me, I guess, is I never really used LinkedIn as a resource, and it's such a powerful tool if you know how to use it. Like we were having a conversation the other day.
Mm-hmm.
It's like our outreach marketing right now is so small compared to what's out there. Especially now you've got people layering in AI and doing different things, but we've we've had such a personal kind of way to attract our customers, and it's through relationships and word of mouth and seeing our trucks and sending people messages. It's not, we don't do email blasts, we don't do things, nothing against that, and I think that's something we'll do in the future. It's just I was really surprised at the LinkedIn community and how helpful it's been and how powerful that
Mm-hmm.
tool is if you really try to use it. I don't think a lot of people realize, because I get some of my friends will comment every once in a while, be like, "Oh, you're on LinkedIn all the time. Like you send a ton of messages and put a ton of crap up," and which compared to some people, I barely scratched the surface. But it's been a powerful tool for us, and that was really
Yeah,
surprising.
100%. I agree. It gives you access to people.
Yeah,
I think it's like the new age email. Like I don't know when the last time I responded to like a cold email outreach.
right.
I feel like that's kind of dead. But yeah, LinkedIn gives you access to individuals. You can prospect that way. You could. It's uh, it's been a huge tool for us personally. I totally agree.
Yeah, so that was kind of a shock, I guess. Um,
Hmm.
Other things as far as running a small business, I mean, it's kind of this. We've started and failed and started and succeeded at a couple businesses now. So most of the stuff I had been through before, right? The primary challenge is how do you get money in and how long can you wait to pay it out? It's
Yeah.
kind of what I spent a lot of time doing. But the customer base was eye opening as far as being able to jump into some of these giant companies and make an impact. And fortunately, I think we've done that through the work that we've done. We've had
Hmm.
almost all positive feedback, and that's helped us kind of pull into new stuff. So I don't have a great answer for that question, I guess, but I just it's just an interesting industry to work in. It's filled with good people, and we're lucky in that aspect.
Yeah, no question. It is. So is the plan now, like the longer term plan, the next 3 to 5 years, is what you kind of outlined before was to diversify your product offering to your customers and expand not just with the niche that you're in today.
Yeah, I mean, we're not looking to be a 50 crew company. That's not our goal really. It's to provide. services to our customer base that solves problems. And I think that's really what's driven kind of what we do. We listen to our customers, and they ask us for things, and we talk about whether or not we can offer it, and if we want to offer it. And that's what's kind of driving these expansions into different things that happen on a plant. So what I'd like to do is kind of walk into some of these other services with our current customers and see how it goes, see how interested they are in those services, and then stay focused on kind of what our primary niche is, which is recycling bone piles and doing demolition, and not get too far outside of that. But overall, yeah, we want to expand, and we want to clean up and continue to revolutionize kind of what we're doing. One thing that we didn't talk about is another thing that we do is we have a report that for all the scrap metal that we recycle, just through some research that I've done, it's not verified in any way, but we come up with what we're calling a recycled materials impact assessment, which says if you were to make steel using raw ore, these are the resources that would be used. But because we're recycling your steel and they're using it in an electric arc furnace, there's a delta between what's used in the traditional process versus the electric arc process using scrap steel. And we provide that report to our customers. And that's something that their ESG programs really attach to. And that's something that we really want to grow that side of our business, the circular economy, all these buzzwords that are happening now. But at the end of the day, is like we are recycling metal that's being reused in products, which makes a significant impact on resource use, especially CO2 and other things that obviously drive pollution. So that's something that we're going to continue to focus on and really try to bring more validity to. I'd like to have a third party come in and validate the numbers that we have, the estimates that we're making, and then use that to kind of continue to reach out to customers to see how we can attach to different sustainability efforts that they have.
Yeah, that's a compelling story, especially for your customers. I mean, those are all really large companies that I'm sure have goals, those ESG goals. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, they put out those huge reports each year, and that's kind of what gave us the idea is how do we become more useful to our customer? Well, one, we're cleaning up their plants, which gives them more floor space. It helps reduce safety issues, a ton of things that it does, I guess, physically. But then how do we pull that into other things, initiatives that they have going on, and being able to help them show the sustainability efforts that they're doing is a huge part of it. Because again, on LinkedIn, I follow all these companies, and their message is constantly saying green and circular, and these are the things that we're doing to change the stigma about that industry. Being the aggregate and sand industries typically have a bad rap for polluting and things, but some of these companies are at the forefront of changing those things and creating net zero steel and all these different initiatives they have going on. So that's what helped kind of pull us in that direction, is how do we be more useful to our customers and continue to solve problems for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's kudos to you guys for identifying the opportunities. It's a really healthy thing too when your customers are pulling things out of you, asking for you guys to solve problems. Right. It's an ideal situation.
Agree.
So are you still a CrossFitter? You still practice CrossFit?
No, not at all.
No? You're off the CrossFit wagon?
Shed in my, yeah. Not because I don't like it or don't have anything against it. It's just I don't have time to go. I don't make time to go to a gym for 3 hours a day, and I have 2 kids and 1 more on the way. So it's just the priority of that has significantly dropped, and we're fortunate enough to have some workout equipment in a little shed in our backyard, so that gets it done for me.
I gotcha. I used to go after work, and then once I started having children, there was the mandate was issued if I was going to do that, it would have to be first thing in the morning. So I've become an early morning
Right.
exerciser.
Yeah, I mean, you got to drive there, you got to do it, and then you got to drive back, and then you got to get ready, and all the things that you spend more time in that part of it than you actually do exercising. So,
But I've come to love it. I've loved the early morning. It's peaceful. It's the only time of the day. You mentioned
taking caffeine really early in the morning is fun.
it is, but you mentioned the 7 a.m. and then it's 5 p.m. Like that's why it's
Right.
part of why I've grown to love it is that it's just no one's calling me at that time, and I
Right.
can kind of just go on autopilot and just get it done.
Yeah, that's the time, that early morning hour or whatever is the only time that you can really spend thinking about where you can take your business strategically, right? Because you haven't been hit
Hmm.
with. I mean, sometimes you sit down and now you've spent your hour looking at emails, but for me, typically that's when I try to think about, okay, what can we do better? Where are we headed, and what do we need to change in order to grow like we want to?
Absolutely. You had mentioned earlier that you were an athlete, and so, I was just curious if you've
Pretending to
dealt
be
with
an
this.
athlete is
So,
what I said, not an athlete.
okay, pretend. But one of the things I struggled with for a long time, like transitioning from like sports to business, was sports. Like you could see the benefits of the effort you were putting in like right away. Like there's a scoreboard, or like you could see progress immediately. And I struggled with business where there was no immediate like, oh, this is something that's working. Everything, the timelines were all like dragged out. Is that something that you struggled with as well? And how have you kind of navigated that?
Yeah, for sure. I agree, and I have those same thoughts sometimes. Right? There's some things in life where you put in effort and consistency over time, the results will follow that. I think
Mm-hmm.
in business, you can put in a ton of effort, a ton of time, be doing the right things, and nothing happens, or it goes the wrong way. And we've experienced that. We've had companies that didn't last or didn't take off the way that we wanted, um, despite tons of effort, tons of time, tons of consistency, trying to be patient. Right? It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's those things are important, and you have to do them in order to succeed. Right?
Or if the scrap price is this, and you have nothing to do with it.
I can cry all I want about it, but it's not going to change the scrap price. So what can we do to actually pivot around that? One thing we did, like we talked about, was we started to look at our customers in other areas and see what their pricing looked like. So then we move that way, or we can try to offer different services. Or
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I definitely struggled with that as well. It's like you get done at the end of the day, and you've done a ton of things, and you're not seeing the payoff in the short
Mm-hmm.
term or the long term, and you wonder why you're spending all your time doing this thing that's not resulting in what you had expected or what you had hoped, and it makes it easy to give up, I think. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, then the next day, all of a sudden, something goes right. Uh, so for me, I think a big theme that's helped me is just I read this thing about the aggregation of marginal gains. Right, you do a bunch of little things right over an extended time
Yeah.
period. Eventually, it has to start making an impact. And I think about that a lot when I start to feel like what we're doing isn't working, or uh, the effort that we're putting in isn't resulting in anything. It's just stay at the basics, and keep pushing on the things that you kind of fundamentals of business, and eventually, hopefully, that will lead to success. And we're starting to see that in our business. Some of the things that we've been doing for a long time that had no impact, like growing my network on LinkedIn. Right? For a long time,
Yeah.
nothing came out of that except me sending requests and trying to get people to follow our page. And we hadn't gotten one job out of it. And then recently, I started sending out messages, and we got 5 or 6 new companies that are interested in what we do. And it's just one of those things that just takes time and consistency. So it's hard when you're not seeing the results though. Yeah.
And especially as a young company too, because every day is so valuable.
Right.
Every day is like so precious too. Like you feel like you have to get a win every day. And
Right.
so yeah, I definitely empathize with that.
Well, it's the time too, right? It's like you're investing your time, and there's an opportunity cost to what you're doing. So if I'm spending time working on my business as opposed to with my family, like I want to see a payoff for that. I don't want to just work for nothing, right? Then if that's the case, then I'm gonna do something else, because I'd rather spend that time with my family as opposed to just spinning my wheels. But it's just that consistent effort, I think, that I always go back to is like, if you want it to work, give it time.
That definitely that resonates with me. Well, I appreciate the hour that you gave me to have a conversation. It was cool to learn about your company and your business. And thanks again for the time for a quick conversation.
Yeah, we appreciate y'all. Like I said, we've used y'all before, and we're extremely happy with the service level you provided, and all the texts that you've sent have been great. So we're definitely a fan of Heave, and we'll continue to use y'all.
Awesome. Appreciate it.